Good morning or good afternoon. Today we are going to be talking a little bit more on quadratics. So we're going to take a look at this U shape, and hopefully everyone has had a great start to the day, and we're going to talk about characteristics of what a quadratic is. So quadratics are usually U shapes that form that they either have a minimum or they have a maximum vertex. They have a y-intercept. They also, some of them have 0, some of them have 1 0, some of them have 2 zeros, some of them have no zeros. So usually when you deal with quadratics, let me go ahead and erase this, you are dealing with something in the form of y equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. This is more of a quadratic because you do see the square and you do see linearity with the x, and then you do see a c. So we're going to really dive into look at this quadratic that's given to you, just given to you, so we can discuss the different points of the quadratic. So first of all, we are going to talk about this point right here. This point is called your vertex on the quadratic. And the vertex, if we look at the x value of the vertex, the x value is 5, comma, the y value is -4. So wherever they meet, the first one is your x value, and the second one is your y value. As you can see there, they do meet at 5, -4. That is your ordered pair. We're looking at our x-intercepts, which are also called 0. So this one does have two x-intercepts. We have an x-intercept right here, and then we have another x-intercept right here. They're also called zeros of this quadratic, which is called a parabola. If you want to get specific, we have this one that is called 8, 0, and this 0 that's called 2, 0. That is your ordered pair. So what does that mean? It crosses the x-axis at those 2 points. That is your x-intercept, or called a 0. Then we further look at this graph and we look at it and we say, okay, does it have a y-intercept? It does right here. This is also called your y-intercept, and our y-intercept is 0, 5, because it does cross our y-axis at the point of 0, 5. And then this vertex, this parabola, has a vertex, but it also has an axis of symmetry. And what does an axis of symmetry mean? Well, let me highlight it in a different color. The axis of symmetry is this line that cuts the U shape in half. So the way we gather what this parabola, what the axis of symmetry is, and it's, let me write it down. So the axis of symmetry, and the way I teach my students to remember, is I circle the x, and anytime that you have a U shape going like this, or you have a U shape going like that, on an x and y axis, you do have this trick that you remember, that the x equals to the x value of the vertex. So once again, we look at the x value of the vertex. The x value right there is 5. So the axis of symmetry is 5. Why is it 5? Because it crosses the x-axis right here at 5. And it does cut this U shape in half. Theoretically, if it was done correctly and graphed correctly, then that will give you your axis of symmetry. Another item that we are going to discuss is the vertex. Is this a minimum or a maximum? So this vertex right here is considered a minimum. The way I explain it in class is, if it's on the floor at the very bottom of the U shape, then it is a minimum. If you're dealing with something like this, and you're at the very, very top of the mountain, and this is your vertex, then this is called a maximum. So those are the characteristics of a parabola, which is your quadratic, which is your equation. We have your x-intercepts right here. We have the vertex right here. We got to identify whether it's a minimum. We also have an axis of symmetry, which cuts it in half. So if it would be done correctly, it would be done, and let me go ahead and erase this right here. If it would be done correctly, then it's this one that does cut the parabola in half, and that is your axis of symmetry. So another key issue is, okay, sometimes the STAR test will tell you, okay, is it a factor, is it a factor? And I want to go over what a factor is. If, let's say I give you a linear equation, and if I have a linear equation, which is a line, and if I have the line that does not pass through my x-intercept, then that is not considered a factor. And we'll have further discussions of this. But if it does pass through my x-intercepts, any one of my x-intercepts, then it will be considered a factor. So once again, I will be going over this in some of my start prep material that I'm going to be going over with you later. So I'm going to go ahead and transition to our couple of practices on Desmos so we can see how easy it is to graph a quadratic, which is a parabola, with our Desmos. So let me go ahead and switch over to our Desmos. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this worksheet, and then I'm going to split screen this, and then I'm going to get my Desmos out, and I'm going to go ahead and split screen the Desmos. So as we've done before, we've done the FOIL method, and we've dealt with the FOIL method before, and all I did was transition the answers to the FOIL method into questions being posed to our class. And a couple of questions that I'm posing is, number one, what is the vertex of this quadratic, x squared minus 11x plus 10, whether it's a minimum or maximum, what is the axis of symmetry, and what is your zero or your x-intercept, and of course identifying the y-intercept. So we have a lot of items that we can do through our Desmos, so let's go ahead and get started. So I did this quadratic, and it came out to n squared minus 11n plus 10. I just converted it all to x's, so we're dealing with the same quadratic that we dealt with at the beginning. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go all the way to the bottom, my last quadratic that I dealt with. And I'm going to go to this one, so then that way we can have a clean screen and we can kind of take a look at some of the features of this quadratic. So once again, I did convert this into x squared minus 7x plus 10. So our first step is to determine whether this quadratic, we're going to determine what the vertex is. So I'm going to go ahead and input it into my Desmos. So I'm going to put x and then a to the square. And then I'm going to go ahead and input negative 7, x plus 10. So as you can see in my Desmos, it does graph my U shape. So we're going to take a look before we get into answering, so we can talk about the different characteristics of this quadratic. By looking at this quadratic, we can already see some grayed out dots that gives us our key features of the graph. If I click on this, this will give me my vertex. My vertex is 3.5 and comma negative 2.5. Desmos does it for me. I have two x-intercepts where this red graph crosses the x-axis. My zero is one of my zeros, and I'm going to take away this vertex. One of my zeros, 5 comma 0, and another 0 is 2 comma 0. So those are my zeros, or called my x-intercepts. So we have that going on. We also have a y-intercept right here, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this to see if it gives me a solid y-intercept. It gives me 0 comma 10, and by looking at this graph, I'm going to shrink it a little. This is, if we look at the vertex is a U shape going up, so this is called a minimum. If you think about the vertex, is a vertex a minimum or maximum? It is a minimum. It is, if you think about it, it's at the bottom of the floor, so it is considered a minimum. And looking at this graph, I'm going to say my x value of my vertex is 3.5. And looking at that, I can find my axis of symmetry because it does pass my 3.5 and it cuts my parabola, which is my U shape, in half. So my x value is x equals to 3.5, and that is my axis of symmetry. So let me go ahead and split the screen, and I'm going to answer some of the questions that we have been posed. And the first pose is, what is a vertex? So we already know the vertex. It is going to be 3.5, comma, negative 2.25. All of it is done by Desmos for us. Is it a minimum or a maximum? This is considered a minimum. What is my axis of symmetry? So the question at hand is x equals to, my trick is axis is x because it is a U shape or an N shape going up and down. So my axis of symmetry is x equal to my vertex x value. So my axis of symmetry is 3.5. If I have my x intercept or my 0, I'm going to take a look at what my 0 is, and I'm going to click on that. I'm going to take away my vertex, and one of my zeros is 2, 0. And my second 0, I'm going to unclick this one, and I'm going to see my next 0, and it is 5, 0. So this quadratic does have two zeros. It's got 5, 0, and it's got 2, 0. If I want to enlarge it, or I want to play around with this Desmos, I can go ahead and do that. Re-click on it, and I can see my two zeros. I can see my vertex. And I want to find my y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and find my y-intercept. I'm going to click on it a couple of times, 0, 10. So those are my features of my parabola, which is my quadratic, which is my U shape. So hopefully we can go a little bit quicker now that we know what each feature is. So now I'm going to go back up to another one that I have conducted. We have a 5x squared plus 10x plus 20. So we take a look at this. All I'm going to do is input it on Desmos. And once again, I can do two graphs at the same time. If I want to check them, I can check them. But I can go ahead and put y equals to whatever the value is, or I could put 0 equals x squared minus 7x plus 10, or just make it simple for us, and we're going to go ahead and put in 5x squared plus 10x plus 20. How do we do that on Desmos? Well, all we do is find the 5. We go x, we do the a square, and I did a double x, so all I have to do is click here. And all I have to do is delete, put the delete button. Let me move it so you could see it a little more. And then I'm going to click right here. And of course, I use this button to delete. Then the next item is putting positive, which is a sign, positive 10x. And then I have my positive 20. So looking at that, I have two graphs. I just want to concentrate on the 5x squared plus 10x plus 20. So all I have to do is unclick the red one, and the red one disappears, and now I find my blue one. So by looking at the graph, I'm going to look at my x and y ordered pairs. I can see a couple of characteristics on this one. Number one, if I look at it, do I have any zeros? Do I have any x-intercepts? I do not. Because at any time does this graph ever cross the x-axis? It does not, because the vertex is right here. Even though it looks like it crosses, but it really doesn't. It crosses my y-axis, which is right here, which is called my y-intercept. It has my vertex as negative 1, 5, and I'm going to enlarge it a little bit like this so you can see it. I have my x-axis being way down here, and you see it right there passing. But again, this one has no zero. So this is a real good one because I have my vertex as being, and I'm going to click on it, negative 1, negative positive 15. So my vertex is negative 1, positive 15. Is this a minimum or a maximum? And you might think, oh, this is a maximum because it's above the x value. That is incorrect because it is U-shape, and the vertex is at the bottom of the U-shape at the floor. So this is considered a minimum. Does it have an axis of symmetry? Of course, it is a U shape going up, so I'm going to do my trick and I'm going to circle my X. So my axis of symmetry is the X value of my vertex, which is -1. So that is the imaginary line that cuts the U shape in half. It's still going to cross through my X-axis as -1. So once again, it still crosses at X equals -1, my imaginary line, if I would have an imaginary line. On my 0 intercepts, or my 0 or my X-intercept, that is no 0 or X-intercept, because it does not cross my X-axis at any time. I do have a Y-intercept. If I click on this, I can find my Y-intercept. My parabola crosses the Y-intercept at the Y-axis at 0, 20. So those are the characteristics of this parabola. So what I'm going to do is, if I want to see both of them, if I want to see what happens if one's smaller, one's bigger, one's higher, one's forward, does it get translated up, does it get translated down, then you can compare two graphs. So you can compare two graphs, you can compare three graphs, as many graphs as you want to compare on the same grid. But for the sake of me explaining the parabola, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, and I'm going to get rid of this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my next problem. So I'm going to be going to this one, which is more x squared minus 6x plus 8. Once again, I got rid of the b minus 4, b minus 2, and I'm just going to focus on the parabola to find out how to graph it using our Desmos calculator. So once again, I find my x, and then I'm going to square it by pushing this button, a to the second, and then I'm going to go minus 6x, and then I'm going to input positive 8. So this time Desmos feels like inputting it in green, so he put my parabola in green, or she. Desmos went ahead and put it in green, so we have x squared minus 6x plus 8. So I'm going to go ahead and look at a couple of features on this parabola, and I'm going to take away my keyboard, and I can always shrink it or enlarge it, and I'm going to have my vertex be 3, comma, -1. So once again, that is my vertex. If I want my axis of symmetry, it is a U shape going upward. So my axis of symmetry is the x value of my vertex. So my axis of symmetry is x equals to 3. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it looks like this one does have two x-intercepts, which are also called 0. So I'm going to enlarge it, and I'm going to see if it does have a solid x-intercept. So I'm going to click on it. Yes, I do have an x-intercept of 4, 0, and I have another x-intercept of 2, 0. So this U-shape, this quadratic, this parabola does have a U-shape and two x-intercepts, one at 4, 0 and one at 2, 0. So that means it has two zeros, 2 and 4. If I look a little bit higher on my y-axis, I can see right here, I'm going to take away my x-intercepts first, and then I'm going to look at my y-intercept, and my y-intercept is 0, 8. So it does have a y-intercept, and they look clean, no decimals, no nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in my information. This is called a U-shape. This is called a parabola, and it does have a pretty much a minimum value because it has at the vertex is at the very bottom. That is how you determine whether it has a minimum or a maximum. So I'm going to go ahead and split screen it again, and I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions that I've been posed. Number 1, what is the vertex? My vertex is 3, -1. Is this a minimum or a maximum? Of course, it is a minimum. I'm going to go ahead and find my x-intercepts, and my x-intercepts are 2, 0. Oh, and I forgot my axis of symmetry. Since it is a U-shape, I'm going to get my trick of x equals to the axis of the axis of symmetry is my vertex x value, which is 3. So my axis of symmetry is 3. I have my two zeros already on screen, so then I'm going to get rid of my vertex, and my x-intercepts or my zeros are 2, 0 and 4, 0. Is it okay to write 2 commas? Is it okay to write 2 and 4? If the question posed to you is, what are my two zeros, 2 and 4? That is correct. You're fine with that as long as you know the difference between that. And how much work did it do? It just took the work of me inputting it into decimals, and decimals does all the heavy lifting for you. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my y-intercept. So it is 0, 8. So once again, my vertex is 3, -1. It is a minimum value. It has an axis of symmetry of x equals to 3. It's got a 0 or an x-intercept at 2, 0, 4, 0. And it's got my y-intercept at 0, 8. And who did all the work for us? Decimals did. So let's take a look at another one. So we're going to look at this one that we've done before, x squared minus 5x plus 6. So I'm going to go ahead and review the key item that I did discuss earlier. If I input a y and I input equals, and then I input an x raised to the square, and then I'm going to go minus 5x, and then I go positive 6. Does that give me my U shape? Of course it does. It does give me my U shape. But what about if I change this and I put a 0? Again, if I put a 0, it does not give me a U shape because it tells you plotting implicit equations or inequalities or any type is disabled. So on the STAR test, you will not be able to put a 0. You could put a y equals 8x squared plus bx plus c. You could put nothing, so either or it does give you the answer, but you cannot put a 0 because then that tells you it is an implicit equation. So for the sake of doing this problem, I'm going to leave it as y equals to x squared plus 5x minus 5x plus 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go over it one more time so you can know what the difference is on all these points. We have a vertex, and we click on it a couple of times. Sometimes we have a vertex as being a decimal of x value of 2.5 comma negative 0.25. So I have my vertex there. I'm going to take away my vertex. It does have two x-intercepts. It has a 3, 0, and it has a 2, 0. So once again, I have my x-intercepts as being 2, 0 and 3, 0. These are also called my zeros, so I can also say my zeros are 2 and 3, which is correct. I'm going to take these out. And another item that I didn't go over is this a minimum or a maximum? By looking at the U shape, it is at the bottom, the vertex. This is considered a minimum. Another question that's been asked is, what is the axis of symmetry of this parabola? Or what is the axis of symmetry of this quadratic? Is it a U shape? Is it an N shape? That is correct. So my axis of symmetry in this equation would be x equals to 2.5, which cuts the parabola in half. My last question that is posed is what is my y-intercept? Where does it cross my y-axis? And it does cross my y-axis at 0, 6. And once again, I can play around with this graph. If I cannot see it, I can zoom it in. I can zoom it out. So then that way I can take a look at the graph. And then, of course, just working with it and just checking the different items. So the first question, what is my vertex of this graph? And this is the last one I'm going to explain, and then I'm just going to graph it on decimals from now on. So my vertex is right there. It's going to give us a decimal. So this is going to be 2.5, a decimal, comma, negative 0.25. So once again, how much work did this take? All we have to do is input the equation in y equals x squared minus 5x plus 6. Is this a minimum or a maximum? Of course, the vertex is at the minimum. We have an axis of symmetry. Once again, do not forget how we remember axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry is the x value is equal to the x value of the vertex, which is 2.5. And this only works for a parabola that is U-shaped going upward or U-shaped going downward, upside down I call it, or N, if you remember it that way. My 0, this one did have two zeros. I'm going to take away my vertex. I'm going to put in my two zeros. I have my 2, 0, and then I have my other one as being 2 comma 0, and then I have a 3 comma 0. So I have my vertex, not my vertex, my 0, my x-intercepts being as 2 comma 0 and 3 comma 0. And pretty much Desmos did all the work for us. I look at my y-intercept. I'm going to take away my 2 zeros. Remember that you can also say that my zeros are 2 and 3. And then last but not least, I do have my y-intercept as being 0 comma 6. So that gives me all the values of my parabola. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this really quickly, so then that way we can have a clean workspace so we can look at everything that we are going over. We're going to take a look at this one. This one's going to be a bigger one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and input this on Desmos without the y. And it does work just as good. So I'm going to put x squared. I press this button, a to the second, and I put too many x squares. So how do I get rid of it? All I have to do is press the delete button here, go back one time, and it gets rid of my x squared. So I'm going to go ahead and put the ink. I'm going to make sure that you can see the quadratic. So I'm going to go back to my Desmos, and I'm going to go ahead and input positive 11x. As you can see, it can already start graphing. You already see the Desmos doing the heavy lifting for you. And then you go positive 18. So I want to double check my quadratic. It is x squared plus 11x plus 18. Then of course I can't see it. I can always use these buttons to shrink it and see my parabola. Or I can use the screen to go ahead and put up, put down. We can see our vertex as being, and I'm going to click on it a couple of times. Okay, we have a decimal as our vertex being negative 5.5. So I'm going to move this a little bit this way. And then my vertex was, and let me erase this. My vertex is negative 5.5. And then I'm comma, negative 12.25. Is this a minimum or a maximum? So we look at it's at the bottom of the U shape, so this is considered a minimum. Now it is a U shape, so my trick to find axis of symmetry, I'm going to circle the x, so it's going to be x equals to the x value of my vertex. And my x value for the vertex is negative 5.5. And that is my axis of symmetry. What is my axis of symmetry? It cuts my U shape or my parabola in half. Next, I can see that it has 2 zeros or 2 x-intercepts, so I'm going to take away my vertex, and I'm going to find my 2 x-intercepts, which is going to be negative 9, comma, 0, and negative 2, comma, 0. Is it okay for me to go ahead? I'm going to take away the vertex one more time. Is it okay for me to write my zeros are negative 9 and negative 2? Of course it is. And last but not least, we are going to find our y-intercept. So I'm going to look for my y-intercept. I can't really see it. So eventually it will stick if it is a y-intercept. So it is 0, comma 18. So those are my features. Those are my vertex, just by having Desmos do all the work for us. So once again, if you learn how to use the Desmos calculator, 80% or 90% of the STAR test is learning how to manipulate and learning the differences between what is x-intercept, what is a 0, what is a y-intercept, is a minimum or maximum, what's my axis of symmetry, being able to identify those on a graph, and being able to identify that via simplistic equation. So next we are going to look at the next one. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that. And at any time you are more than welcome to pause my video. And if you pause the video, you can always try the next problem. And then you can see if you got the right answers. And if you got the right answers, and then you can continue playing my video and then see if you got the right answers. So now we are going to look at this equation right here. Let me change right here. And we're going to find the vertex. We're going to find whether it's a minimum or maximum. We're going to find an axis of symmetry. We're going to find a 0, an x-intercept, and a y-intercept. So again, if you want to pause the video anytime, you can pause the video, try it out, find out if you can find the vertex, find out if you can find the minimum, maximum, whether it's a minimum or maximum. You can find out whether you get the axis of symmetry, the zeros and the x-intercepts, the y-intercepts. Once again, if you want to pause, you can pause. If not, let's get going. So we're going to go ahead and first input it into decimals. So I'm going to put x squared minus 10x positive 9. So once again, it does plot everything into the decimals. And then I'm going to find my vertex. Vertex is 5 comma negative 16. This is a lot cleaner than the ones we've had before. So once again, my vertex is 5 comma negative 16. Is this a minimum or is it a maximum? It is a minimum. Why is it a minimum? Because it is at the bottom of the U shape. If it was at the top of the mountain, the vertex, then that would be a maximum. So the trick on finding the axis of symmetry is, of course, I'm going to circle my x because it is a U shape or it's an N shape. So on the graph, x equals to the x value of my vertex. What is my x value of the vertex? X equals 5, so my axis of symmetry is x equals 5. Why? Because it's going to cut my U shape in half and it's going to pass through the x-axis. Then after that, I'm going to find my 0 and my x-intercept. Just by looking at the graph, I can see that it does have two zeros. It's got a 0 at 9 comma 0 and it's got a 0 at 1 comma 0. So those are my two answers. I'm going to go ahead and put 1 comma 0 and 9 comma 0. If I want to find my 0, I have my x-intercept as being 1 comma 0, 9 comma 0. If I want to find my 0, it's okay to say 1 and 9 are my zeros. Lastly, I'm going to find my y-intercept. Where does my graph cross the y-axis? And it crosses, I'm going to take away my x-intercepts, and it crosses at 0 comma 9. So once again, those are my features of my parabola. So those are the correct answers. So let me go ahead and delete this one. And let's go ahead and do the next one if we have any more. So the next one that we're going to be working with is x squared plus 4x minus 12. Once again, I can continue inputting it and taking off the graphs. If I want to compare it to quadratics, I can go ahead and leave them on the decimals. But once again, I am just showing you. So once again, I can get rid of that one and I can go ahead and input this equation, which is a quadratic. So I'm going to input x squared positive 4x minus 12. And once again, the decimals does all the work for us. So then I want to manipulate the graph and I want to go all the way to the bottom right here. And I find my vertex right away. My vertex right here is negative 2 comma 16. And I love it when our parabola does have no decimals, no fractions that we have to deal with. So my vertex is negative 2 comma negative 16. Is this a minimum or is it a maximum? It is the bottom of the U shape, so it's considered a minimum. My second is my axis of symmetry. I'm going to circle my x, so I'm going to remember that since I circle my x, x equals to x, my x value of my vertex. What is my x value for my vertex? It is negative 2. 90% of the time you will get a U shape or you'll get an upside down N. So it will always be my x value of my vertex, my axis of symmetry. That all changes if you have a U that goes sideways, and then that's not a function for concept purposes. Then that would be a U shape crossing the y-axis. So my axis of symmetry would not be my x; it would be my y. But for most of the problems, we do have our x-axis of symmetry, which is x equals negative 2, which is the x value of the vertex. Now I'm going to look at this graph and I'm going to say, well, look right here. We have our y-intercept before we even get to our x-intercepts. So I can already get the answer. Where does my U-shape cross the y-intercept? At 0 comma negative 12. So right away, I got my answer on that one. Does it pass my x-intercept in one place, two place, or no places? Well, this one does, and it does pass at here. Let's see, we're going to have a solid number. We are, which is a whole number. And then we have a negative 6, which is our integer of negative 6. So we do have two x-intercepts, one being negative 6 comma 0, and the other one being 2 comma 0. Those are my two zeros, or my x-intercepts, and of course I can also put my zeros are negative 6 and positive 2. So I found my y-intercept, I found my 0, I found my axis of symmetry, and I found my vertex. So once again, those are the key features for all these graphs. I'm going to go ahead and delete this graph, and I'm going to go on to the next one. So let me go ahead and delete this. Just like a whiteboard, I can go ahead and delete this. And then I'm going to go on to my last one that I am going to go ahead and cover. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I'm going to go ahead and input this in y equals mx plus b, which is your linear. So then one of the items that I do want to cover is I'm going to give you a couple of more questions so we can finalize. I'm going to give you, after we find our key features, I'm going to give you x plus 1, x minus 1, and x plus 10. And I'm going to ask you, are those factors on our U-shape? But before we get on to that, I'm going to first discuss what the vertex is of this quadratic. So once again, for this purpose, I just changed it into an x squared so we can look at it. For this quadratic, I am going to go ahead and put y equals to x squared minus 11x. And then my other one is positive 10. So positive 10. So here is my quadratic. So once again, I'm going to look at my quadratic and I'm going to look for my vertex. My vertex is right there. Oh wow, I have a negative and a positive, and then I have decimals to deal with our vertex. So I'm going to go ahead and put my vertex right here just to give us a little bit more space. My vertex is 5.5 comma negative 20.25, and you might say negative 20 and 1/4, or 5 and 1/2. Once again, decimals also converts our fractions into decimals, so that's a way you can check whether those are correct or not. Is this a minimum or a maximum? Of course, it is a minimum. Is it a U-shape? Of course it is. So how do I find my axis of symmetry? My axis of symmetry is x equals to, what is my x value for my vertex? It is 5.5. Do I have 2, 1, or no x-intercepts? I actually have 2. I'm going to take away my vertex. I have my 2 x-intercepts. And I have 1 comma 0, and I have 10 comma 0. So those are my 2 x-intercepts. So I am going to put 1 comma 0 and 10 comma 0. And then I have 1 y-intercept. So I'm going to find my y-intercept. I don't know where it is. Let me start clicking. There it is, 0 comma 10. If it was not a y-intercept, then it wouldn't stay by itself. It would continue to go like, if I keep on going down right here, and I keep on playing around with that, if it's not one of the common points, it will disappear. So right there, it does stay. So that tells me that is a y-intercept, 0 comma 10. So what do you need to know? You need to know your x-intercepts, you need to know your zeros, you need to know your y-intercepts, your vertex, your axis of symmetry, and whether it's a minimum or a maximum. Now, I want to take this question further because I am going to be going over this on my start prep material. And I'm going to ask you a question. And there's always, usually, one question like this. I have all my information, and I'm going to be now looking at looking at this. My question at hand, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this. So then that way I can go ahead and keep this clean. And then I'm not going to make that... so then I can just look at this question that I'm posing. So my question that I'm posing is x squared minus 11x plus 10 a quadratic? It is. It's a quadratic. I got to know what a linear is. If it was a linear, then it wouldn't have an x squared. This is a quadratic. if I deal with exponential, then it has a tiny little x at the very top of the exponent. But that's not the question I'm asking. My question is, and I'm going to circle this quadratic, I'm going to ask, are these factors? So I gave you 4 linears. I gave you an x plus 1, x minus 1, and x plus 10. And usually on a STAR test that they give you, you can check to see if they are factors. So I'm going to go on the decimals. I already have the first one plotted. I'm going to plot each one. I'm going to plot this one on number 2 space. I'm going to plot this one in number 3 space. And I'm going to plot this one in x plus 10 on number 4 space. So the way I plot it is I put x plus 1. And I'm going to see, does this line pass through my x-intercepts? And if I can't see it, I can look at it. It does pass through my U-shape, but does it pass through my x-intercept of 1, 0 and 10, 0? It does not. So this would not be a factor of x squared minus 11x plus 10. Before, we used to do synthetic division, but now you can determine whether they're factors or they are not just by knowing whether it passes through my x-intercept. Well, then let me take this away. I'm going to input the second one, and I'm going to say, is it my second one, x minus 1, a factor of this quadratic? So I'm going to go ahead and input x minus 1. Is it a factor? Does it pass through my x-intercept? Does that linear line pass through one of my x-intercepts? And it does. So yes, this is a factor. So it is a yes. And I'm going to check my last one. Is this a factor? And I can always take this away. And I can go ahead and put my last one, x plus 10. And as you see, Desmos does input them in different colors. And I have x plus 10. And I want to know, is this a factor of this quadratic? And the answer to this one would be no. So once again, I do have a factor. One, that is a factor. The other two are not factors because they do not pass through the x-intercept. They don't pass through right here, 1, 0, and they do not pass through 10, 0. And if I want to come back and check that I input it correctly, I check this. Did I input x plus 1 correctly? Yes. Did I input x minus 1 correctly? Yes. Did I input x plus 10 correctly? Yes. Do I want to put all three of them at the same graph? Yes, I can. I don't have to. I can tell that some of them are parallel, or are they all parallel? They are all parallel. Why? Because they have a 1 as your slope. So once again, they are parallel. That one's not going to have any solutions where they cross, where they meet. But once again, we're not looking at that. We're looking at factors. So once again, x plus 1 is not. I put them all here. So I want to double check that this is my only answer. I can go ahead and take this one out and add this one out. Is that the only one that passes through my x-intercept? It is. But then I want to check these, that they are not answers. Do they pass through my x-intercepts? They do not. And does this one pass through my x-intercept? They do not. And once again, I would leave those highlighted. And when I take these out, I can take them out. And I kind of know, okay, I'm going to test them out. And then I'm going to highlight my x-intercepts right there. And of course, neither one of them pass. And then I check my inputting. But once again, Desmos does all the work for you. All you have to know is what is a factor, what is an x-intercept, what is a y-intercept, what's an axis of symmetry, what is a zero, and what is a vertex. Is it a minimum or a maximum? And of course, if it is a factor, and learning how to input a lot of these into the calculator. So I hope this lesson has been very informative for you. So I want to inspire you to continue learning math and to continue doing amazing work you're doing every single day in our classroom and learning together as a team.